Good afternoon from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's Monday, the 22nd of December 2025, and the time is 12. Let me just check. Aha, I was correct the first time. 12:43 p.m. It's currently 33 degrees and it feels hotter. It's been miserable. I've had the birdies in the back bedroom with fans going, and I sat there for a while, and then suddenly all my energy just washed out of me like a receding tide. So I went and lay down and had a little snooze for about 15 minutes, half an hour. And then I woke up, and then I walked around the house like a little lost soul, feeling hot, and then I thought, why am I suffering? I had this beautiful air conditioner bought for me so I wouldn't have to suffer. So I thought, why am I living like this, like some kind of twat? So I've brought the birdie boys in the lounge with me because I don't think they need to suffer needlessly either. I've given up on the fans in the back bedroom and in my bedroom. They're useless and they're noisy. They're really grinding my gears. I tell you, if I had money, I'd have an air conditioner in every room of this bloody house. It's almost become a necessity now. It's just so scathing hot. But anyway, I'm grateful for the one that was gifted to me by my beautiful earth angel. She really has saved my life in many ways, just with that alone. But for some peculiar, it's almost like I've been punishing myself. I haven't really been using it during the day and only when I sit here at night watching television. And I haven't watched much television lately, last week. So just been going to bed and lying there with the fan. But today we're going to sit and comfort and ease. Excuse me, I've dropped some of my sesame snaps on the floor. We're going to sit in comfort and ease, and it's too hot to even put the birdies out in the garden, which they're a bit disappointed about that. They like to go in the garden. We'll see if it cools down in the afternoon, my boys, and then we'll go in the garden together, but only if it cools down markedly because it's too hot, boys. It's like they're listening, they're like, okay, Mama T, okay, whatever you think's best, Mama. They're such good little birds, really. They're so quiet and sweet. Such good birds. Little Kermie fell down. I was transferring him to his own cage last night because he's taken to want to sleep in Beau's cage. And I actually had him on the mitt. He was sitting on my hand, but he just sort of shuffled forwards and fell straight down, and I got such a fright. I thought he'd injured himself. So he's sitting a bit quietly today. I don't know if he's in pain or if there's anything wrong, but he seems quite contented. He's not showing signs of actual distress. So I think he's okay. I think he's just like everyone else in the house, suffering with the heat. But anyway, I got such a fright last night. I was like, oh, please don't let anything bad happen to my beautiful bird. Anyway, they're both quilling all around their head. They've got all little quills. Kermie's got a lot of quills around his head. So that can make them feel a bit unwell and miserable too, the quilling. It's quite painful and sharp, poking through their skin, all the new feathers. So I'm just worrying about them, but they're doing what is natural, what all birds do, push out new feathers from time to time. Right, let me just open this blind. I just want a little bit of light here while I'm reading to you, people of Earth. I feel a bit off myself, but it's the heat. I saw my friends Belinda and Bill yesterday, which was nice, and I picked up the the dragon notebook that I ordered from her, which is just beautiful. Do you want to see it? I posted it up on Instagram, but I didn't put the video up on YouTube. But I'll show it to you because I think it's just lovely. One moment. My little handsome ones. My little handsome ones. Yes. I tell you what, as soon as you go out the rest of the house and you come back into the air conditioner, you're like, oh, you hear me breathe. But look what she made. She's going to production making these. I think this was her very first one. And then she made a second one for me to choose from, but I like this first one she made because I liked his glittery, purplish, bluey, purpley eye. But catches the light in different ways. And then on the back. Anyway, I said to her, I have to have that. My Miss Five, my inner child, had to have it, you know, especially after just reading The Hobbit out to you recently, people of Earth. And he just looks so wise and beautiful. And no doubt, like all dragons, he's sitting on my gold. Where's my gold dragon? Not going to tell you, Mama T. All right. Some secrets are meant to be kept. He says, when I'm ready, I will share some of the gold with you. All right, dragon. We'll have to give him a name. We won't call him Small because everyone calls all the dragons Smorgan. I'm sure there are other names for dragons. It'll come to me at the appointed time. Right. But it's beautiful, and it's, as you can see, she even bound it. It's so beautiful. It's a notebook. Just gorgeous. I'm just thrilled with it. I really am. I'll be able to write my dossiers on people of Earth. No, I usually, I don't really write dossiers anymore. I used to. It's how I kept myself sane, writing all the little facts down and paints a picture. But I don't bother with that now. I've outgrown that. Too old, too tired, quite frankly. But, yes, I could use that for writing my dreams up in maybe, or use it as a magical kind of grimoire. It's perfect for that, but I've already got that grimoire that I made out of the piano songbook holder. So, how many grimoires does a witch need? Only fun, darlings. Only fun. Anyway. Let us continue on with chapter 8 of Boadicea. It's perfect for a grimoire though, isn't it? It's almost tempting. Right, I've been busy all morning interacting on comment sections and Merogenomics and some others, and you know, interacting with other humanoids. Well, I think they're human. Sometimes I wonder if they're actually bots, but anyway, it's interesting bouncing off ideas over people from all over the world, and especially when we're in agreement about a certain substance. Just saying, it's interesting what people come up with. So, I want to show you, I'm watching the wind in the trees over there. I don't know what kind of a tree it is, but that silvery coloured one. stop doing it now. And there it goes. It's just swaying in the wind, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's windy out there, hot and windy. It was so beautiful when I woke up this morning. It was actually sunny but coolish, but I knew it's going to be another scathing hot day. Don't even need to look at the weather report. You just know these things by the way the light's coming down and bouncing off everything. But you know, summer in Brisbane, Australia, it's par for the course. It's normal. But anyway, there was something else I wanted to tell you, people of Earth, before I got on videoing, and I've forgotten it. Well, if it's important, it'll pop back into my brain, won't it? It will. Chapter 8. At dawn on the following day, 6 cohorts of the 9th Legion marched south towards Camulodunum, side on to the salted wind. Grey, blustery light rebounded off 3,000 polished helmets and raked across curls of strip armour kept free of rust by daily attention. It's a lot of bloody work. Makes you wonder when they had time to fight with all the polishing and gathering food and all the other things that great armies need. Better to not think about that, actually. 4 men abreast, with 2 javelin lengths between each row, and 12 between each cohort. The legion marched fast and light, taking neither mules nor carts, but bearing their packs with them, each man burdened with only enough food and equipment for 2 overnight encampments. The legion's eagle and the cohort standards crowded in the scarlet and glittering forest in the early rows, flanked by the officers on their horses with the cavalry better mounted just behind. These first ranks departed at dawn. The last of the men, waiting their turn, passed through the eastern gates of the winter fortress around noon. In between was an unbroken snake line of mounted and unmounted men and the measured tread of their footfalls. They marched south along the ancestors' stone way, a paved trading route so old that 100 generations of wagoners had brought their raw iron and salt and copper and enamel. Enamel is ground up glass in various colours used for enamelling, people of Earth. Pretty sure that's what they mean by that. Along its length, from the southern ports of the great river to the seaport, with its access to snow-bound lands across the sea, and carted the hounds and leather and Nordic amber, which was highly prized back in the day, still is actually, and walrus ivory and mutton, and bales of wool back south to the great river and thence to Gaul, the Germanies, Iberia, Rome, and all the rest of the empire. The legions used the trackway and had repaired it, but it was old when Rome was young, and had been a trading artery when the ancestors still used flint to tip their spears. Baby, 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 baby. Sorry, I get distracted sometimes. I'm actually processing the information at the same time. It's a bit weird, people of Earth. It's how come I can think so laterally. Too many near deaths will make your brain function a bit weird, people of Earth. Just how it is. A full wing of 500 Batavian horsemen trotted on either side of the leading cohort, hooves hammering on the stone like the roll of distant thunder. They were big, broad-shouldered men, armoured in chain mail and bearing cloaks of undyed lamb's wool, with green checks like studded emeralds woven along the hems. They rode into a possible war unhelmeted, with their gold hair tied up at the right temple, like this. A bit like Princess Leia in Star Wars. That's where they probably got the idea from. And their arms bared to the sun, the better to show off the quantity of armbands in enamelled gold and silver that was their pride and their wealth. Like their riders, their horses were big and bay and fit and uniformly harnessed in good ox hide, with quantities of silver at the harness mounts. Each mount had its mane pulled newly short and its tail tied up to keep them from providing a handhold for the enemy in any battle. The Batavians were taught from childhood that if they had the ill luck to be unhorsed in battle, they should grab the tail of an enemy horse and swing themselves up by it to unseat the rider and claim the mount for themselves. 20 years of battle amongst the tribes of Britannia had not convinced them that the warriors against whom they fought would never dream of grabbing the tail of a passing horse. Valerius rode at their head with Civilis on one side and Longinus on the other, and only the standard bearers between him and the legate, Petilius Cerialis. Could be Cerealis, it starts with a C. I chose to give it a hard K sound. I don't speak Latin, so I don't know where I got that idea from, people of Earth. I've been calling him Cerialis this whole time, so we'll stick to it, just for the sake of cohesion, people of Earth. If you're going to be wrong, you might as well be wrong the whole time, till someone kindly corrects you, and then you have to adapt to that gnosis and make adjustments. Metaphor for life, isn't it? Yes, it is, people of Earth. His mount was the white-legged, almost black colt with the beautiful neck, whose mane and tail, at his insistence, had been left unpulled and untied. Civilis had been blind to the vices of a horse he clearly loved. All was sweetening the truth when he made his gift. The beast was not significantly easier to ride than the Crow horse, who had sired its sire, only younger and less predictable. It shied and spooked sideways at patches of sunlight or grasses waving alongside the trackway. It napped at every lift of the wind and every crash of armour from the ranks. It had not bucked Valerius off on mounting, but only because he had been warned that it might do, and had the practice of sitting its grandsire. As the morning progressed, a shifting, treacherous mist drank what was left of the day, so that by noon they rode as though at dusk. Away from known surroundings, the not black colt became more willful, not less, sidling 3 steps sideways, for every one forward. Horses don't like it when they can't see clearly, just like any animal, that basic survival skills and common sense. They get tetchy. They also don't like to face into the wind. They always have their backs to the wind. Always. That's how you know which direction the wind's coming from, if you watch your horses. And if an earthquake's coming, which I come from Wellington, so we have many earth tremors almost on a daily basis, usually not very big ones, but the horses always sense it way ahead of time. You can always tell. Yes, like you tried to tell me about the earthquake we had here. Well, it wasn't an earthquake, but an earth tremor. Kermie and Bo spent that whole early morning, it happened about 10:35, I was actually making a video. And they were so restless that morning. He was pacing up and down, up and down. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so restless and agitated? And then I just, ignored it, not realising. See, you should listen to your birds and your horses and your pets, your cats and your dogs. They're early warning systems. Anyway, when it happened, they were petrified, and I'm sitting there swaying going, oh, my chair's rolling all by itself. I think we're having an earthquake. Like a douche, I still sat here. My whole house is built on very cracked stumps. All the foundations, the concrete stumps that hold it, are all very badly cracked. So, and I asked the Department of Housing to send an engineer around. This is about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago. Oh yeah, they're fine, there's nothing wrong. I spent the whole time leering at my legs as I was walking around the garden and doing odd jobs, Every time I looked, he was looking at me. Didn't do much fucking engineering, that bloke, I tell you. So anyway, and of course they've cracked even more since then, and here I am sitting in an earthquake in that back bedroom, swaying, going, oh, it's an earthquake. Yeah, da, 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 da. The birds had the sense to be terrified. Anyway, I went down under the house, had a look. Yep, there were the stumps. So this house could technically, literally fall down with us in it on the, upper floor, higher floor. So it's a bit freaky, people of Earth. But what am I going to do? Housing's not going to give me a better house or a house the same as this one. So I just sit here and wait for everything to either collapse or for, my own death, whichever comes first. But yeah, I don't fancy dying in a fucking earthquake. especially in a city that's not prone to many earthquakes. It's a bit weird, be a bit of a weird demise, but that's what happens, people of Earth. You never know when your number's up and how weird it might be. So we won't think about that. We'll keep reading Boadicea. Men on either side gave it clear space, grinning. Valerius bit his lower lip and cursed at it roundly in Hibernian. Hibernia was Spain, wasn't it? I think it was Spain. Gaul was France. I could be wrong, but I think it was Spain. At a point when his horse had remained parallel with Longinus for more than a stride, the Thracian said, "You're enjoying that." Valerius arched a brow. "Not as much as you think. If we get back to the steading alive, you can have him. I'll go back to the crow horse." "No, thank you. Some of us like to ride without fear for our necks. I'm happy with what I've got. It's better by far than the one I rode in on." Longinus rode a bay gift horse that was indistinguishable from any other in the Batavian cohorts. His only concern, voiced the evening before, was that it would respond to the Batavian battle cry calls which were foreign to him, and that he might therefore find himself charging into the enemy at a time not of his choosing. Who or what the enemy might be had not been discussed. The two incomers had been dining at Cerealis' guests at the time, They had been dining as Cerealis' guests at the time, on wood pigeon roasted in honey, with figs and olives and a quantity of good red wine, and the only shadow on the evening had been Valerius' refusal to drink anything stronger than water. It's not a drinker, our Valerius. Interesting. Speaking of water, I'm going to dose myself up with some more. I'm really not well today. My tummy's gurgling away, and for fuck's sake. And I ate healthy the last couple of days. Didn't eat any crap at all. Eat healthy and die trash. Can't win, can I? Sometimes you just can't win. My former GP, who could be quite snide, she said, "You think one day of eating healthy is going to save you, Tanya?" And then I'd look back at her and we'd laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. But she kind of wanted me dead when she withheld the antibiotics when I had a two-year battle with bronchitis. I finally asked for antibiotics to resolve it because I was sick of perpetually dying. She withheld them. Gave me a very mild, the lowest dose of penicillin, only one without a repeat. When I said I need the repeat, withheld it. The bastard. I'll never forgive her for that. It's rare that I even drag my sorry ass to a doctor, because I try to manage things on my own. And then when it gets to the point of no return, for them to withhold actual proper medical care, it's tantamount to murder. Well, I didn't die obviously because I'm still here. Courtesy of Jim Carrington on my YouTube channel, who took the time to advise me to drink Marlene tea, and he said it would heal me, and it did. To you, Jim, you're a better doctor than all these legitimately credentialed, qualified doctors. You, sir, saved my life. There's a few people that'll be pissed off that you saved my life, but you saved my life. A real man. There's good people out in the world, and healers aren't always doctors. Weird, isn't it? But anyway, she did used to stir me up about my bad diet, and she had a point, you know. I used to let her have that because it was true. I'm always fair. What's real is real, and what's true is true. But withholding antibiotics when I was trying to get on top of a 2 years long bad bronchitis was a specious kind of evil. Anyway, I don't have a GP anymore. So I haven't had one since February this year. So I'm going to have to sort that out, because in the event I need more Ventolin inhalers or something else happens to me, by all the gods, it's ridiculous. It's good motivation to stay well though, keep away from doctors, and keep your body, mind and spirit together more than ever before. Right. Valerius doesn't drink anything stronger than water. Valerius had plainly not intended insult, and made up for it later by acknowledging his position as a sworn lion of Mithras. He had found himself, therefore, the highest-ranking initiate of the bull slayer in the 9th Legion, the centurion who had been father, having been swept to the god in an epidemic of pneumonia at midwinter, and had spent the time between the 2nd and 4th watches, 2 hours either side of midnight, conducting an initiation in the cellar shrine beneath the quartermaster's stores. Longinus, who preferred the moon gods of Thrace over the Persian incomer, had not been privy to the underground rites, only seen the new peace in Valerius's eyes as he had emerged, so that it seemed as if a night of lost sleep might not have been a disaster. Later, in the grey light before dawn, with the first dew beading the grass and cockerels calling, the pair had walked up into the horse paddocks to another shrine that Civilis told them of, where the sign of a running mare had been chiselled onto a rock above a spring. Above was a far older mark of a moon and a hare, and the two men had poured water in libation for their respective gods and for each other. They had each poured 2 for Civilis, without either of them being clear what it meant. Thinking of that now, Longinus said in Thracian, "Your once brother is old. This is his chance to seal his name in history. You have no need to feel responsible for it if he chooses an honourable death in battle." The track passed a small mere, M-E-R-E. I guess by that they mean pond, although mer usually means sea. In French it does anyway. La mer. A trio of ducks took flight in a clatter of wings and aggrieved honks. The white-legged colt spun on its hocks, wild-eyed and snorting. Valerius swore in Thracian, Batavian, Gaulish and Latin, and fought it back into line. Breathlessly he said, "I am not responsible for any man's actions. Civilis's life is his own to treat as he will. if he endangers what we plan. I will kill him myself. I swear it. I know. I've seen the extent of what you will do for the Iceni. Longinus pushed his horse sideways to avoid a pothole that stretched half the width of the track, cursing idle Roman engineers and the ravages of winter. What are we going to do if his Batavians don't follow him as he has said? Fight them, as we thought we must to begin with, if we get that far, which we may not. If you look up ahead, you'll see the legate has noticed the place where the forest kisses the marsh and the track squeezes through between. I think perhaps he has just remembered the stories he was told as a young tribune of how Arminius slaughtered 3 legions on the Rhine. What was that, my boys? What was that? Oh, Kermie. I think they like being in here with the air conditioning too. Petilius Cerialis rode a blue-eyed white gelding with a splash of chestnut on one ear. It stepped high-legged at the front and did not look as if it could sustain a man long in battle. Bending, he spoke at some length to the youthful messenger riding at his side, who turned out of line and dropped back to Civilis's side. His Excellency wishes to point out to you the potential for ambush ahead where the track is constrained between the forest and the marsh. He requests that you call to your side the most courageous of your Batavian warriors, and, taking with you the messenger of Mithras, who has the skills of an engineer, he favoured Valerius with a white-eyed glance, that you ride ahead to the site of the overnight camp, there to hold it secure against possible attack until the advanced cohorts of the legion may join you. He further orders that if you are attacked, you are not to await commands, but are to act on your own sense of battle, nurtured since the time of the invasion to repel the enemy. I am to come with you to learn the tactics of warfare. It was a long message, relayed in a voice that cracked near the end with the pressure of responsibility. The youth was high-born Roman, 3rd son of a magistrate, and fired with the service of his emperor. He had been one of those branded with the raven of Mithras in the cellar at midnight, and was white still with smoke-reddened eyes and the simmering fervour of one who has seen the face of his God and may not speak of it except in the clamour of his own heart. Civilis smiled for him with something of the soft indulgence he had reserved for the horse boy Arminius, his great-grandson, named for the man who had destroyed 3 legions of Rome. He said, "Thank you. My men are already chosen. They will do now as the legate orders. May he have long life and the close company of his gods. The old man raised a hand. If his salutation was ambiguous, neither the youth nor the legate commented on it. A Batavian in the line behind bore on his spear's neck a scarlet pennant marked with an oak tree in black. At Civilis's signal, he lifted it high with one hand and with the other raised a silver-tipped cow's horn to his lips. The noise when he blew was not unlike that made by the ducks which had risen from the mere, but longer and louder. Valerius sat very still, waiting for the white-legged colt to explode beneath him, and was pleasantly surprised to feel it prick its ears and settle instead. Immediately behind, 250 horsemen, that half of the wing Civilis trusted most highly, peeled away from either side of the column and rode forward, leaving the infantry behind. Moving at a trot, and soon at a canter, they steered their horses to the narrow strips of unpaved ground on either side of the trackway, where the turf was springy beneath the feet. Valerius gave his colt its head and let it take the front, lengthening away from the rest. Longinus caught up with him, laughing. In Thracian, he said, "The Roman message boy loves you. Am I supplanted?" At speed, the white-legged colt was being unexpectedly steady. Valerius sat lightly, waiting for that to end. He said, "Only if you want to be, and not by him. I branded him last night in the presence of the god, and he thinks that in doing so, I called the god to speak to him. He has forgotten that the gods choose freely to whom they will appear and speak, and are not called by those of us who follow them, however carefully we learn the words of the rites." This is true, people of Earth. Very, very true. Longinus whistled. Was it wise to be filling the legions with pious fervour when we may be fighting against them by the end of the day? It was what the god required of me. I didn't take the time to ask if it was wise. Valerius clicked his tongue and urged his mount to a little more speed, and the two gift horses, both trained by Civilis, responded to the command, stretching out their necks and backs. And the pound of their hooves rolled lightly across the turf, as if on midsummer paddocks. In the middle of the afternoon, 250 Batavian cavalrymen rode at a gallop into the only defensible site suitable for a night camp in the forested part of the ancestors' stone way. It lay in a natural dell, a broad, shallow scoop where the trackway dipped down to follow the lie of the land and veered at the same time inward, away from the marsh. The forest had been cut back on all sides by the men of the 9th at the time they had used it as an encampment on their first march north. Since then, passing legionaries had kept the area around the camp's margins clear, leaving chopped wood in piles for fires and for staves. But the ditches and latrines had long since been filled in, and the grass and moss allowed to grow over. The Emperor's peace must be seen to reign in the east, and the presence of an active marching camp on the biggest arterial trade route running north from the capital city of Camulodunum did not sit well with that. The dell smothered the noise of the horses so that they entered into peace. Nearby, water trickled musically within the shelter of the nearer trees. Sometime in the past 2 decades, an engineer with spare time and initiative had dug a ditch into the marsh and run a series of fire-baked clay pipes under the trackway so that they emptied into glazed troughs of differing sizes set to one side of the dell. Bog water trickled in at a steady rate and out again from corner lips to drain into wide pebbled soakaways below, so that horses could drink and men could bathe, albeit coldly, and the ground beneath would not be churned to quagmire by the second morning. A legionary of rather less imagination than the engineer had carved crude stick images of either horse or man into the side of each trough, lest those who followed be confused by which vessels were for watering the horses and which for bathing. The Batavians dismounted at the gallop and led their steaming beasts to drink. Valerius, arriving later and more slowly, got down and walked his horse in hand around the margins of the encampment. The marsh fog was less here, as if it clung to the forest or was held within the margins of the trees by an outside force. In the dell, a blizzard of snowdrops hung greenly white along the risen edges of the infill where the encircling trenches had once been. Layers of leaf litter drifted against the ridges, and a part circle of mushrooms rutted near the centre, broken by the greying skeleton of a hind. Her rear hind leg was missing, and her jaw fractured raggedly with claw marks along its length to show where a bear had struck it. Longinus kicked at the broken edge of the mandible. The she-bears will be happy with that. Valerius said, the she-bears left it there. Look at the inner edge of the mandible. It has Kunomar's mark of the bear paw on it. The rites of the bear will weaken the legionaries, or so they believe. He drove a short iron stave into the ground. Stand here and tell me if I step off the line. For 10 years they had done this together, marked out the outer walls of a marching camp. Valerius paced backwards, unwinding a thread of oiled wool from the marker's stave. Longinus shut one eye and watched. "You need to go half a pace left," he said, and then a little later, "Left again. It's that bloody mad horse. It doesn't ride straight. You're leaning right." They paced and marked. Near the end, Civilis came to watch. Valerius said, "Have your men start digging. Standard camp, standard size, standard drill. I'll mark out the tent lines." Half a wing of Batavians, cursing amiably, fetched mattocks and shovels from their saddle baggage. Working in pairs, they began to break open the green earth. They were big men, used to war. And still the first of each pair took care to lift the turf with its mesh of snowdrops and set it to one side, to be replaced with equal care in the morning when the camp was taken down. Elsewhere, grass and moss were turned over as sods to march the trench lines. Spade load after spade load of friable, much shovelled soil became, quite soon, ramps within the trench work. Following Valerius's direction, smaller trenches, little less than divots in the turf, were dug within the camp lines to show the incoming legionaries where to place their 8-man tents and the larger, more stately pavilions of their officers. Long before they had finished, the sound of marching rolled to them up the trackway, and the gold and scarlet of the standards breasted the mist. The officers were already dismounting. Behind them, the first 4 men of the infantry reached the dell and halted. The Batavians howled insults, cavalry greeting the infantry as they had always done for being late to camp or battle. Grinning, the infantry hornsman in the front rank lifted his cornu and blew. The sound brayed down the marching column and was repeated back and further back on and on down the line to the last century of the last cohort, where tired men heard it and knew that rest lay safely ahead. Valerius, who in his guise as engineer had begun the hardest part of the camp making and thus saved them many hours' work, raised his skinning knife in salute and hailed the incomers derisively in Latin, Batavian, Thracian, and one of the native dialects, entirely foreign to the men of the 9th Legion. They cheered and answered in kind with friendly obscenities. From the forest close by, almost lost beneath the sound of marching and of halting and of men thrusting their heads into clay-piped water, a lone owl called thrice in daylight. Which I don't believe is a very good omen, people of Earth. Let me just see if I shall continue. It's lovely and cool in here. not all that well and a bit tired. It's quite a long chapter. Let's see how long is the next chapter. Oh well, fuck it. And for a penny and for a pound, says she who doesn't get paid for my energy offerings, but in service to the gods. It is what it is. We'll keep going. Energy is energy, people of Earth. The mama tea can rest afterwards. Got to go out into the scathing heat and clean my fish pond filter. Should have been done on Friday. And it's only a few days overdue, but I don't like to get too far out of my routine. What are my beautiful birdie boys doing? Where you going, little Bo? You get up on your perch. It's better in here with the mama, isn't it? Yes. Or instead of sitting in that noisy room with the noisy fan, still bloody hot. It was awful, wasn't it, my boys? Awfulness. Oh well, together we will survive. It's only going to keep getting hotter and hotter because we're only really near the end of December. We've still got January, February, and the humidity in February and March to look forward to. Dear Goddess. Wow. Day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath. Right, here we go. We'll carry on. Right, chapter 9. Chapter 9. Bellos the blind kept watch against the legions of Rome from the side of an unlit fire pit in the newly deserted great house on Mona. Cold kept him awake and his mind sharp when the two familiar smells of hearth and peat and thatch and the jostling afterthoughts of the departed warriors and dreamers might have lulled him to inattention. So many men and women had lived in the great house and the settlement around it. So many children had been born. So many of the old and the not old had died where Bellos now sat. Each had carved something on the roof beams, and each had left behind the imprint of thoughts and memories. They were not bad thoughts, nor ugly memories, but they made it harder to focus his attention. He had trained 3 full years for this. It was not impossible, only hard. Sightless, he stared at where the fire had once been and stretched his mind past the boundaries of the settlement to the shores of the gods' island, and then out across the treacherous water of the straits towards the mainland and the wall of iron and sweat and pained horses and bored, frightened, hopeful, angry, determined men who slept in tents in the mountains of the far shore. Urgency gave him a confidence he had once lacked. In the early days of his blindness, 3 years before, Bellos had prayed to every god he knew that he might be allowed to see again. Lying or walking or once running high-legged to avoid another fall, under the ministrations of Luan Mac Calma, elder of all Mona. What's going on, Jeremy? Oh my goodness. You okay? Come on, little boy. You're all right. Come on. Uh-oh. He really can't fly, you know. He just flew and then fell on the floor. I better go and get him. Hang on a sec. See what's wrong. What's worrying you, little dude? All right, come on. Come to that mama. Come on. Yes, I know. I know. It was a bad fall yesterday. Come on. Yes, where do you think you're going? Where do you want to go? Oh, did it again. Come on. I don't know how to make things better for you. I really don't. All right. He's a good boy. You're a good boy. You can sit with the mum. Come on. You sit with the mama. All those new feathers hurt too. You're not having a good time, are you, my one, lovely one? I'll just leave him do his thing. He can't really go far, can he? He can barely bloody fly. My sweet little baby. At least he's active now. What's the matter, little Kumi? He's exploring the room. Right, now where were we? Lying or walking or once running high-legged to avoid another fall under the ministrations of Luan Mac Calma, elder of all Mona, Bellos had believed that he would be healed. Mac Calma's skills had been legendary, and the blow to the head that had stolen Bellos's sight had not been hard, barely enough to cause a headache. There had seemed little reason to fear that the light might be banished from his life forever. What you doing, little handsome boy? Might just try and put him back in his cage. Just feel nervous. Here we go, little man. Come on. Come on. You're so nice. Come. You're a good bird. You're a very good bird. You're a very good bird. There you go. Back up on your swing. A bit cooler now. Is it too cold? Is that what freaked you out? Gone from hot to being cold might have freaked him out a bit. You can always turn the aircon off for a little while. Where did I put the, just a moment. Here, I put the remote over here. If you're too cold, my boys, Mama can turn it off, but it's actually not that unpleasantly cold. From the sublime to the ridiculous, isn't it? But anyway, it's probably why he's feeling a bit more active, because I've just sat there like this all day. Like dying little pigeons. Mama's felt like a dying fat pigeon too. Good boys. Oh, my good boys. You're so good. Right. It was only later, looking back, that he could trace the moment when the taste of the infusions he had been given to drink had become less bitter, and the stories Mac Calma had sung over the fire had changed from tales of golden-haired Belgic youths riding to victory over their foes to ones of the blind dreamers of the ancestors who had suffered hardship for years in order to learn how to walk in the other worlds, and had thereby saved their people from destruction. It's a bit like that, isn't it, people of Earth? Then, in the days of the ancestors, children of great talent had been chosen young and shown all the wonders of all the worlds, and then blinded by hot irons that the ceiling of sight in this, the smallest of the worlds, might open them more fully to the visions of all the others. Luan Mac Calma Bellis came to understand, would never deliberately blind anyone in his charge, however gifted in the dreaming. But if a youth came to him who had lost his sight by accident, and if he suspected that youth might be possessed of a talent that stretched far beyond anything yet explored, then he considered it his duty as elder and as a healer to test that youth's limits. Even that much has been said slowly by careful degrees. The turning point had come on a day in the spring, nearly a year after Bellos's blindness had first struck. He had been sitting outside the small hut with the stream running at his feet and a fire somewhere behind, when he felt the tall, lean elder come to stand by the first stepping stone that crossed the brook. Mac Calma's dream was the heron, and it was easier to think of him as such. In the empty dark of his mind, Bellis pictured the angled legs and the stabbing beak, and shielded himself against its probing. The elder turned and walked away, its feet soft on spring turf and the cast leaves of winter. From some distance back he said, "Where am I?" He had asked the same thing the past 3 days in a row, from almost the same spot. "By the curve in the stream," Bellos said wearily, and then, because it was his task for that month to paint clear images in his mind of all the things he could not see, He filled in all that he could imagine of the stream and the canopy of oak and hazel and drooping willow with the furled spring leaves and the first hints of catkins. He placed the rocks of the crossing place with the moss damp and fresh and the swirling water around and a chaffinch because it seemed right to him, and then was surprised when his mind filled in the detail of Macalma as a man, long and lean, standing with one foot up, holding an unsheathed sword in his left hand. In his mind, the elder tilted his head to one side and raised. I can't raise both my brows. It's weird, I've never had Botox, people. I can't do it, look. Almost. Half a brow. Anyway, so work with me, people. He raised a brow, which is an art form I can't achieve. Does it ruin my life in any meaningful way? No, it's just slightly irksome. Imagine how I would have felt if I had Botox in my face, which I would never do, and I couldn't raise my eyebrows at all. I'd be really pissed, wouldn't I? Peaked. You have to laugh. Peaked, Bellos said. You have your right foot on the first stepping stone, and you carry a blade that was not made for you. Really? Who was it made for? The thread of doubt in the elder's voice stung Bellos to answer. Valerius made it for the sake of the making. He had no one in his mind to wield it. But then you came to his forge in Hibernia, where, while he was hammering it, with news that his sister was dead, and it carries the fears and angers of that day. How do you know that? I heard you tap the iron with your finger. How else? If you can tell me how you can hear by the tap of a finger what a smith felt when he made a blade, I will be most interested to learn of it. The voice was closer suddenly. See, sometimes I can. If I don't think about it, I can raise an eyebrow. Now it's twitching involuntarily. We'll stop while we're ahead, people of Earth. The voice was closer suddenly. Something shifted in the air. A hush of a foot on stone and a hand moving away from its resting place. In the dark world of Bellos's blindness, the heron, was now vividly a man, so that each of the lines on the elder's face was clear. This close, it was hard to doubt that Macalma had sired Valerius. There was too much that was the same in them. Hurt, Bellos backed away. He felt his eyes prickle and the skin of his throat flush hot. I'm not a seer. If the future were open to me, do you think I would have taken a path that led to blindness? I can't be what you want of me. Why can we not just let it go? Even if I were Roman, you would not torture me like this. Is it torture, Bellos? Truly? Macalma had followed him. Cool, calloused hands held each side of his face, turning it until the tracking tears, which he might have hidden, were exposed. Are you in pain still? 6 months of silence broke apart without warning. Weeping openly, Bellos sank to sit on the stone. Does pain have to be of the body to be real? I want to see again, to see the ocean and the trees and the great house, even now that it's empty and a travesty of what it once was. I want to see the sun set and the moon rise and the storm clouds cover the stars. I want to see the small things, the scratch on the side of the beaker I drink from in the morning, the wren that feeds from my hand, a leaf fall from a tree on a day without wind. I want to see a hound at a distance and know its colour, to see the look in a horse's eye and know if Valerius trained it, and, if so, whether it is safe to ride. I want to see the first look of a lamb when it stands after birthing. I feel as if someone has wrapped a bandage round my eyes as a bad joke, and I want them to take it off. I want you to take it off. Bellos was in blackness again and thought Mikalma had left him. He sat on the stone and turned his face into the wind and heard nothing, and wondered if he had gone deaf too, which would have been the end of living. He jumped as lean fingers settled on his shoulder, and Mikalma's voice, stripped of all taunting, said, "Bellos, I'm so sorry. In all the planning, I forget what it is to be young and powerless and in pain." The fingers moved down Bellos's arm, firm healer's hands that knew what they were about. Unresisting, he let his right hand be smoothed out flat and felt the hilt of the sword that had been forged by Valerius press into his palm. Just turn this off for a little while. Confused, he gripped it, feeling foolish for his lack of warrior's skill. Even so, the familiarity of it coursed through him, bright as a Hibernian morning. He had never held that blade before, but he knew, without effort, its balance and weight and the ridges on the grip. As if they were his own, he could feel the fear and pain and anger that had coursed through Valerius as he had beaten the last part of it to shape on his anvil. The anger took hold of him. matching his own pain and sending it on to its natural conclusion. Before he could arrest the thought, Bellos saw himself dead in the Roman way, fallen forward onto the blade so that the length of it entered his chest in the front and came out again, wet at the back. Shocked, he dropped the thing and heard iron bite into turf. Imagined blood splashed out in rivers across the green grass, and he could not make it disappear. He looked up and saw a heron take flight, and yet knew that in the world of his blindness, Mac Calma had not moved. Something split apart in Bellos's head, and he saw the heron circle in over the stream and felt Mac Calma's half smile and watched his own ghost greet Briga, who ruled death, and take the first steps to the lands beyond life before it faded into a future that would never happen. He would not let it happen. If his first prophecy were proved false, it would be his last. No one asks for visions from a failed seer. Bellos sat on the ground and breathed slowly, and the knifing pain behind his temples became less. He said, "I am not going to fall on that blade, now or ever. Whatever is happening is not the future. I really don't want to be a seer," which is fortunate, because you would need to train for 20 years to come close, and even then it is not always easy to interpret which dreams show futures that may happen only if every condition is met, and which are certain. Are there any of those? Very few in my experience, and there are more that are purely born of unspoken anxieties. Your vision of yourself dying was a fear, not a future. The two are quite different. Mac Calma bent to pick up the blade. Bellos could feel its shine, not as the moving of air, but as the raw awareness that let him feel the essence of the blade and the man who had made it, overlaid with the heron soul of the elder who held it out across his palms. Mac Calma said, "The blind dreamers of their ancestors rarely chose to become seers. Their skills were better used in other ways, as yours will be." What other ways? They were facing each other now, with the stream alongside. The water chuckled and mumbled over smooth stones. The shapes of it made sculptures that formed and melted in Bellos's mind in a way that was quite different from his mind-made imaginings, as if a door had opened and the land beyond it were not clouded in blindness. He clasped his hands about his knees. I don't understand how seeing fear and anger could be useful. Do you not? It will not only be fear or anger you can see, but all strong feeling. Even so, suppose an enemy army were to come to battle and you were to know the hopes and fears of the men who fought in it. Could you see how that might benefit our warriors or our dreamers? Is it not a simple thing to send dreams into clouded minds? Easier to pick up the threads of those fears that already exist and weave them into something stronger. Men who fight afraid die afraid. If we face overwhelming numbers, making more of their fears may be our best, our only hope. It's how they got us with the COVID vaccine, putting the fear of actual death into people's minds. Fear, false evidence appearing real, is what drove the populations across the world to willfully accept the bioweapon. The only thing my father ever taught me of any real value as a child was there is nothing to fear but fear itself. Wise words that would run through my mind on a regular basis during the height of that insanity. Predictive programming, propaganda, coercion, psychological operations. They threw everything at us, people of Earth. Everything, everything, everything. And we had already been weakened and softened by decades of glyphosates and GMOs and DDT and Agent Orange and things they spray in our air and pour into our waters. Made us weak and docile and compliant. Fuck. There had been no army of legionaries camped at the Straits then. War on Mona had seemed impossible. Rome had been a distant threat, with the legions mired in an endless, apparently unwinnable battle against the tribes of Western Britannia. In his naivete, Bellos had said, "The warriors of Mona number in the thousands. The dreamers are twice that number and twice as dangerous. How could any army outnumber us when they must cross the straits by boat, 10 at a time, or try to swim it in columns, towed by their horses?" A certain closing had happened in the worlds that had just opened. Sitting by the stream with his senses scraped clean, Bellos had experienced also for the first time what it was to have a mind shielded against his new way of seeing. From the strange flatness that had come suddenly to obscure him, Mackarma had said, quite kindly, "We must lure the legions to the west if Briaka is to have a chance to free the east. To do that, we may have to sacrifice Mona." "How?" "You will see if it happens. I will not destroy lives for the sake of it, As many as may be of those who live here will be sent west to Hibernia. Already we have the ships waiting. But then Mona will be undefended. Not entirely. We will not leave it empty, and the gods have ways to protect their own. But even so, it seems likely that there will be an assault by at least one legion, or maybe two, on this island. When that day comes, we will need you as we have never needed one man before. If it would help us to destroy all that is Roman and push it from the land, would you learn what I can teach you of the ways to walk between the worlds? The day had fallen quiet. The skip of the stream and the chatter of children at the great house and the sighing wind had all been hushed. Only the wren that fed daily from Belos's hand sang clearly. The dreamers told that the wren was mightiest of the birds, beloved of the gods, because it alone could fly higher than the eagle and see farther. With nothing to obscure the purity of the sound, the spiraling notes stippled the sky, beautiful as leaves that fall without wind in autumn. Belos had said, "If you think I can do it, I will do my best. I make no promises of success." The heron that was Mac Calma had been more than usually gentle as he said, "The gods never ask for the promise of success, only that we try." For 3 years, Belos had tried his best to learn all that Mac Calma could teach him. With each successive year, he had watched the sacrifice of Mona brought closer with a ruthless single-mindedness that had shocked him more deeply at every step. Valerius had played a part in it, leading the warriors to battle to allow the evacuation across the short sea to Hibernia of dreamers and children, livestock, breeding herds of horses, and all that was sacred and could be moved. The great house could not be moved. The ancestors had built it to withstand storm and tempest and the tests of the dreamers. But the vast beams of its walls and the turf on the roof, which were old when the gods were young, were as much a part of Mona as the rocks of the foreshore and the forests of the interior. They could not be uprooted and shipped west to Hibernia, however welcome they might have been. With its long lineage of dreaming, with the carvings along the roof beams showing the dream of each elder going back hundreds of generations, the great house of Mona was the most profound of Mac Calma's sacrifices, designed to draw the Roman governor to attack the island and thus to commit his forces to a battle they could not win against an enemy who had already fled the field. The plan had succeeded in proportion to the cost. With horrified admiration, Belus had watched as a pacifist Roman governor had been slain, and his successor, picked for his skills as a general, had been goaded into a progressively more savage war against the Silures and the Ordovices. These two tribes had successfully held the West for the 20 years since the invasion. It could be just Ordovices, but I know. I'm laughing at myself how I made that sound so Italian. Under Mukama's guidance, they had gradually and apparently unwillingly been pushed into retreat, luring the legions westward by slow degrees as summer closed into autumn and the fighting season drew to an end. What you doing, little Kermie boy? My pretty boy. And my bow's a pretty boy. My beautiful boys. Feeling victory close, the Roman governor had advanced hard at the onset of spring, until he camped with 2 full legions and 8 wings of cavalry in the mainland valleys less than half a day's ride from the vicious currents of the straits that guarded Mona. So large an army to capture and subdue a scrap of an island that a warrior on a fit horse could ride round in a day. The legions were afraid of Mona and of the men and women who lived there under the gods' care. That much was obvious to anyone, whatever their vision and training. It was to learn the shape and size and texture of those fears that Belus sat beside the cold fire and sent his mind beyond the confines of his body as he had been taught. It was becoming easier with practice. The hardest part, always, dear Goddess, was crossing the short stretch of sea that divided the mainland from the island. In the world of sight that other men inhabited, the gods' water flowed grey and wild and unpredictable, with shifting sandbars and hidden currents to drag into drowning all those who sought to conquer Mona. In the worlds through which Belus the blind alone could travel, the sea was a chasm of untold depth that sucked souls into the void of its heart and destroyed them. Less than 2 days before, he had finally found a way across. Something Macalma had said gave him the key. Remember that this world is an illusion as much as the others. We who have sight see what we choose to see, and so make it real. Understanding the truth of that made it possible for Belus to view the chasm at least partly as a product of his own fear. For 9 days he had worked on focusing his will until he could make himself believe it nothing more than an illusion. I tried to do that with the COVID regime. I did. But then people started getting ill around me. Sudden onsets of dementia and diabetes and turbo cancers and a subtle softening I called the sweetening, which was quite astonishing to witness too, especially coming from men surrounding me when I went dancing. Changes in cognition, changes in driving habits even. So many changes. I still wish I could wake up from this nightmare and find it was all just a illusion, a cosplay, a facade. On the same sharp spring morning when geese mourned a dead messenger in the lands of the Iceni, Balus the blind, sitting in the great house on Mona, half a month's ride to the west, and passing through a world in which he alone could see, crossed the gods, plural gods, chasm, as if it were dry rock, and for the first time in his life stretched his mind to touch the mainland of Britannia. I'll just go back to the map. I want to show you again and remind myself again where Mona is. Here. Camulodunum is Colchester, not London. London is Lugdunum, which became London. Well, there you go. So London is here, and Colchester or Camulodunum is up there. Geography, people of Earth. Bloody geography. I closed the book and I've lost my spot. No, I haven't. Open to the exact same page. Well done, Tiny Arrows. Muscle memory or something like that. What are my handsome boys doing now? Kermie! Bye! My little boy, my little Kermie. Oh, you're just so naturally quiet. And then when he got active, I freaked out. But I can see now he can't fly. He flutters. He flutters and he flops and flutters and flops. So he sustained an injury. Can't fucking fly. Little one can fly, little Bo can fly, but he doesn't fly very often. Do you, little Bo? When he flies in concentric circles. It's quite astonishing. Well, Kermie, what are we going to do about this non-flying business? At least I can take comfort that he can't exactly escape one day, but it's not good not being able to fly when you're a bird. It's degrading. It's distressing. What are we going to do, handsome boy? need to go and buy some rock melon and some watermelon. I've got blueberries still, but maybe some nice berries or something nice to give to my birds. Honestly, I worry about them as if they were my children. But yeah, I need to buy food, but I get paid tomorrow. I get paid during the night. So tomorrow is Tuesday, isn't it? 23rd. I have to rush out, and it'll be mad at the shops. I really dread that. But yeah, I don't have money till tomorrow, so I can't do anything. This is how I live, people. Stretch right to the finest nth degree. But anyway, I'll go out and I'll buy a few bits and bobs because Jared's not coming on Boxing Day, so, but he'll probably come afterwards, I would suspect. Because he's working, he said, it's rostered on, so I have to get a few nice things to eat in case he comes after Boxing Day, between Boxing Day and New Year's. I don't actually know because he probably hasn't had time to communicate with me when he's coming. But anyway, I also need to eat, so I've got to buy a bit more food. And stressing about money and food all the time, it's an anxiety-driven thing. It's not really actually that bad, just a headspace I get into, especially at Christmas time. But anyway, it'll be all good. I'll just get the bare minimum of what I need tomorrow, hunker down for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Just hunker down, lay low like I do every year. Anyway. It was very kind of my friend Belinda to get me this lovely book, though. Still thrilled about it. So there is that. Right. His quiet, where were we? He stretched his mind to the mainland of Britannia. His quiet satisfaction as he saw the rocks and seaweeds of the shore lasted less than a heartbeat. Even as he paused to look around, he was enveloped by a wall of blinding fog, product of the wine and fatigue and ill-considered dreams of the legionaries. Which reminds me, I've got to refill my oxygen bottle for my Smith Little torch too. Wanted to make a few things, but I can't without the oxygen and the gas. That's another $70 worth. Anyway, I don't know what I'm worrying about. It's neither here nor there. Balos had become used to being able to see in the other worlds. Suddenly blind, he stumbled across unseen boulders with his arms outstretched, feeling too close to the days of his youth as a whore in a harbour tavern in Gaul, when Manannan of the waves had sent the sea Har to fill the town and make everyone white blind. Panic made him careless. He felt himself trip and begin to fall forward as if his body had real weight and might be cut to ribbons on the sharp rocks of the shore. Mac Calmer's voice held him. An illusion as much as the others? an illusion, only that. Belus breathed deep and made the rocks less sharp, and gave himself the kind of balance Valerius had in battle. Steadier, he closed his mind to everything but the earth at his feet, and stood still on flat ground of his own making. The fogs of his childhood had been harsh and wet and cold, and had mirrored his life of the time, which was not his life of today. The understanding of these two things and the difference between them made his fear less. He laid aside past memories and remembered instead the warmth of the great house in winter when the fires were fully lit, and the care that surrounded him now. Thus enfolded, Belus stretched his mind again towards the palpable textures of 1,000 men's nightmares, and was not blinded. He breathed in the hopes and fears of the legions. His head buzzed with the myth and rumours of defeated men who had fought too long in a land where they were not welcome. He listened to old conversations recalled by sleepy minds, which laid the hell of the weather and the sucking insects and the bad food and the bogs and the quicksands and the routine mutilation of slain legionaries, all at the feet of gods who supported the tribes and loathed the legions. Well, it is what it is, people of earth. Those who honour their gods are often guided and protected and spared worse fates. Sometimes, but not always, you understand. Every man, woman and child, every living creature has God's judgment upon them. And none of it was specific, and none of it was enough to halt an invasion. Belus took in a breath and set about to find what he needed. First, he created clarity, hand's breadth by hand's breadth across the ground in front of him. His hands spun the fear fog into cords that could be teased gently from their moorings without alerting those from whom they came. The men thus robbed would wake in the morning with thicker heads than their wine might have predicted, but more important, the full colour and terror of their nightmares came to Belus as he wove, so that he came gradually to see the common threads that ran through all of them. He was working near the centre where the officers' pavilions were pitched when he found the pinpoint of light that showed a wiser mind. He watched it sideways for a while, never looking directly in case his gaze was felt. From this one man He took no threads of thought, only scattered him and left the thinning mist of his comrades as a cloak. Even so, there was a reaching out from the other and a kind of recognition, as if they shared more in common than they knew. Surprise and a trace of his own fear loosened Belos's hold on the place where he stood. A ripple of cold spread across his chest in warning. In the great house, he was no longer alone. Holding fast to the cords he had spun, he made the easier, lighter crossing back to the world of his heart and daily life, and opened his eyes into blindness and the draught of a lit fire. Luan MacCalma. Some men he knew simply by the way the air changed around them. He said, "I thought you were on Hibernia overseeing the building of a new great house to shelter those who had been evacuated from here." The elder was sitting by the fire pit. The smell of new smoke came from between his feet. He said, "I was. The great house is nearly done, or nearly so. They have less need of me than you do." "You think I have need of you?" Belos felt himself stiffen. "Have I risked more danger than I knew, or failed in the tasks you set me? I don't know. Have you?" Belos was learning how thoroughly MacCalma cloaked himself. In this man alone of all the warriors and dreamers he had searched in his training, Belos could see nothing that he was not shown. He saw humour now and the archness of the heron, and watched surprised as both softened to something warmer. "I'm sorry. That was disingenuous and also dishonest. I have a need to be here that is separate from what you do." The elder rose and moved away from the fire. He sounded more like Valerius than he usually did. "For 20 years since the legions came, I have watched the tribes driven into servitude in spite of all that I and others can do. This may not be our last chance, but it is our best. If we can draw Suetonius Paulinus and his 2 legions fully to us and destroy them, even if we can only weaken them, then Briaca and Valerius may prevail in the east. If they can take Cumulodunum and restore the god to his seat, then we may finish what we have begun. We may wake one day in a land free of Rome." The whole of that action begins here now on Mona. The cold that had touched him before sat again in Belos's chest. He said, "You haven't answered my question. Am I failing in my part of this?" "Not at all, but I may be. I have risked the sacrifice of Mona and all that is precious here. 100 Generations of elders have learned in this great house, and I will see it burn to preserve those I believe are greater. I may be wrong. This may be the greatest hubris and the biggest mistake ever made by one man in the face of the gods. Only by being here as it happens will I know which it is. In the fire-warmed quiet that followed, Bellos saw something of how the elder of Mona might look if he chose not to shield himself to one who walked between the worlds. He said, "The legions are terrified of the straits. They believe them filled with sea serpents and spirit women who lure them in by song and drown them. They fear the threat of warriors who kill from the forest and the highlands and do not stand in lines and fight. More than all of that, they fear the dreamers." Their commanders have told them that we sacrifice living men to the fire and read the future in their screaming. They have all seen the circus in Rome and been rendered weak in their guts for fear to see the same deaths enacted on the men of the legions. If we can bring any of these things to reality, they will come to us already beaten. Or they will fight with the carelessness of men who know their lives forfeit and want only the clean death of battle. I have seen that, and not only in the legions. When the fear is greatest, sometimes it turns to battle rage and is all the harder to contain. But it's good to know what they fear. We can work with it. Thank you. Mackarma tapped the tips of his fingers on Bellos's knee as he had done once or twice in the days of their training. I have an idea how hard that must have been. We may need you again. Will you be willing to do it? It was effortless, said Bellos, and believed himself. If it will defeat Rome, I will do it whenever and for as long as you ask. But not tonight. You need to sleep. Thorn has lit a fire in your hut. She may still be there if you go. Thorn was there. Like Mackarma, she made no allowance for Bellos's blindness, for which he was daily grateful. She was warm and giving and glad to see him, and that too left him speechless with wonder and gratitude. He had been a child whore in Gaul, used by men, not kindly, and beaten after by the tavern master if he balked at their advances. He had resolved early in life never to inflict the pain of his desire on another human being. Then Valerius had come, with his guarded, over-careful kindness and the brittle touchiness born of need to show always that he was never going to ask anything unwanted of the child he had freed. Bellos had not expected ever to feel rejected by a man or to care if he were. The hurt of that too had taken some time to heal, and it was only latterly, as he had come to understand the pain that drove Valerius, that he had begun to comprehend the fastidious care with which he had been treated. He had started to love then and to yearn in his own right, and had needed time to set that aside before something approaching true friendship could grow. It had done. He believed that, and kept the memories fresh in his heart. Thorn had come to tend him after Valerius left for the east. She too had been careful in her affection, becoming a part of his life as surely as the wren that fed from his hand, never asking for more. He had been slow to understand her too, and so the moves towards something deeper had been all hers, taken so slowly and carefully that she had been in his bed, winding her body around his, before he had truly understood what had overtaken him, and that it was allowed and safe, and would not cause hurt to either of them, and that she wanted it of him, and that he wanted it more than anything he had ever imagined or could imagine, except possibly the return of his sight. When Mac Calma had returned sight of a kind, Balos's one fear was that he might lose the want of Thorn. In the event, his need had been no less, and his joy greater. He could envisage no greater gift than the greeting she gave when he returned, cold and worn, from the great house, and she was waiting for him with a fire lit and her hands chafing his to warm them, and the smell of stewed hare in the pot, and her voice weaving a magic that brought him back to this world, where he might be blind, but he could reach for her and hold her close and explore the contours of her being with the same wonder as the first day and each day since. He put the bowls aside carefully, not to spill what might be left. Thorn came to him, teasingly delicate. She smelled of the sea and of wood gathered from a forest floor, and of the pepper musk that flavoured every part of her. Her skin was smooth as polished stone, and her hair spun wool under his fingers. He had no idea what colour it was. He let her draw him to the pile of horse hides that was their bed, and cradle him in her arms as if he were a child. Her breasts and her sex pressed on his back, and the feel of both brought him back, so that he understood how far into the other worlds he had gone. He might have been afraid of that, but the urgency of his own need pushed the thought away, so that he rolled over and took her face in his hands and kissed it, and waited until her breathing told him that her need was as great as his before he entered her. Later, as her hound warmed his back and she warmed all that was still warm in him, he said, "I thought you had gone to Hibernia with the rest of the dreamers." "I had." Thorn smiled into the crook of his neck. "I came back. McCalmer's dreams showed me here when the legions come." Balos felt the cold in his chest for the third time that night. His fingers halted their combing of her hair. "Do his dreams show you still living when they leave?" he asked. She bit the edge of his collarbone, reproving. "The dreams don't yet show anything after the first battle. We have to make the future happen as we want it. That's why I'm here." Manifestation people there. Thus concludes chapter 9, 8 and 9. I'm exhausted, going to have to lie down. It was lovely. It was a lovely storytelling. I enjoyed that, although I feel quite drained now. I'm going to... Why is that not sitting down? Aha, wrong side round. Dear Goddess. Better now. I'm going to... what am I going to do now? I wanted to do the fish pond. It's still bloody hot out there, so I'll wait till it's a bit later in the afternoon. And I might work on my ring a bit later again this afternoon. I'll see how I feel. Might have a break from that actually. It was starting to cause me a bit of stress. It's meant to be a pleasurable thing, making jewellery, not something that causes me stress and distress. But I need to finish off the wax model because I want to melt the silver and set it. But yes, I was worrying before, I don't think I have enough oxygen left in the bottle to melt the silver. So then it will have to wait till after Christmas, because I guess Total Tools might close down for Christmas. Anyway, it's not a present for anyone else. It's just kind of a present for me, but more of an experiment to see if I could bring that magic back to life, that magic ring. See how it turns out. I'm not all that 100% happy with the model, so the wax ring, so it's got to be right, because otherwise it gets copied into the silver exactly. I have to fiddle with that a bit. Maybe tomorrow. Hasta mañana, as they say in Spanish. Anyway, have a beautiful day wherever you are in space. I needed that. In the space-time continuum. Try and stay cool and enjoy our Brisbane heat and live your best lives. And if I don't come on YouTube before, have a wonderful Christmas. And of course I'll be here. Probably be here tomorrow. I'll be here every day because I don't observe Christmas, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But in the event that the gods decree otherwise between now and Christmas, have a wonderful season. Stay safe, stay happy, stay free, stay fierce. Hold your line, people of Earth. Live your very best lives with harm to none and competition for and with none. So it is done, my beautiful ones. I'm going to get Kermie out of his cage and I'm going to cuddle him. He's trying to snooze with his head tucked in his wings, so maybe not. Sitting there so quietly and peacefully. But I have an urge to try and cuddle him a bit. I think he needs some cuddling. So we'll see. My little Kermie boy, my beautiful boy. Bobo's a beautiful boy too. Might cut them up some nice vegetables and give them something else to chew on. All right, bye for now, beautiful people of planet Earth. Take good care, be of good cheer.